Hi there, and welcome to this Khaos Cloud Explainer video on purchase orders. In this short introduction, we're going to take you through creating a new purchase order in your Khaos Control Cloud system. So firstly, we need to open the purchasing screen, and then using the action button at the top, we're going to create a new purchase order. The first thing you do when you're creating a purchase order is you select the supplier you're working with. So if you've seen in the other videos we've created about purchasing and that sort of thing, you'll know we created a test supplier called Andy's Test Supplier. So I'm going to use that company record, double click on that, and it will start creating a new purchase order. I'm going to briefly go through the header information that we need to make sure we enter. So the purchase order code generates automatically. You can name that yourself if you need to, but normally I just leave that to tick over. The required date's a key thing to check. So you need to tell your supplier when you expect to have the goods in by. We're going to be relatively generous and go for the middle of January. And then the site that you're creating the purchase order for. So if you've got more than one site in your Khaos Control Cloud instance, it's important that you set this properly here up front because that'll make life a lot easier in terms of setting delivery addresses for the supplier, setting expectations internally in terms of where goods are going to be expected to be delivered to. Right. That's the basic header information set. We need to put some items on our purchase order. So above the items being ordered grid, we need to use our blue new item button. That'll open the stock lookup, and you can see we get our default view in here, and we can start going down here, double click on a line to add it to the grid, and you'll see it comes on with a basic ordered quantity that pulls through by default from the product. So we're actually going to have 10 of those. The gross unit and net unit are defined. So obviously if those change individually, you can amend those. So for example, the net unit is going to be 39, we could update that here, and the gross unit updates in line. Last but not least on the grid, the date we require that line for feeds from the required date from the purchase order. You can have different required dates per purchase order line if you want to. So what we can also do when we're adding new items to the grid is we can use the filter in the stock lookup, for example, to filter by supplier. So if we only look for products that are associated with my test supplier, there's only a couple, we can add each of those in turn. So we've got that executive pen, and you'll see that comes on with an ordered quantity of 25. That's because the default reorder quantity I've set for this product against my Andy's test supplier is that figure. I don't have to order in that number if I don't want to, but it gives me a default starting point. Let's change that to 50, and then we'll put the highlighter on there as well. And again, that comes on with a quantity of 5 because that's the reorder quantity I've defined for that product. Last but not least, I want to talk about the other default information you could define against the purchase order overall. So we've looked at our basic details. We can also define our delivery cost. This is optional and will depend on how much you're spending with your supplier with regards to how much they want to charge you. But if they're going to charge you a delivery cost for the purchase order, you can build that in here and then start feeding that through to your purchase invoice. You've got an associated reference you can set for the purchase order. So this could be an internal reference for yourself if you've got a code for a project where you want to group everything together. Could be a separate authorization code, that kind of thing. I'm not going to worry about setting it now, but it's there for you to do so if you want to. And then our Supplier Notes tab can be very useful. So the supplier here, we default to Andy's test supplier, obviously, and telephone number, but we've got the address set. Now, if we had multiple addresses for that supplier, so there are a number of different sites we worked with, you could define the address you want to work with there. If there's anything particular we want to say to the supplier, we can slap that into the note field. And then if there are any internal notes, we can enter them as so. So we've got our items, we've got our header details set, our delivery address is going to be the same as the company. We can just hit save. And there we go. The purchase order's been saved successfully.